Welcome back to HPL. We're about to move into our first match between Greensheep and Rdu, and you know what? I'm really excited to get our first look at Rdu.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of been all over the place in his career, going back and forth. So really, the consistent thing has been his early game focus. He wants that control early on and wants to dictate the pace of these games. So can he do that versus someone like Greensheep, though, who's going to come out swinging right away?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the biggest test in this matchup is who's going to get the early development on the board and keep it there, and I think that's going to be who wins.
Yeah, I have to totally agree with you in that regard. We saw Greensheep kind of go away from that with Grim Patron Warrior, but it's anyone's guess what he's going to play today. Guys, get hyped. Match 1 is starting right now with Greensheep versus Rdu.
Yeah, I'm super excited myself. Can't wait to see Rdu play. Look at that great smile on him, too. He's ready to play.
Bright young kid. Always wants to study more.
Both of these are great and bright young kids.
Yeah, I mean, both. Rdu has focused a lot on Hearthstone very recently, and Greensheep has kind of done the same thing also. He's going through his whole life right now. He's still in school, trying to graduate.
He's only 17, right?
Yeah, got his whole life ahead of him, and he's putting esports on top of that in a competition sense. I mean, this is great stuff we're seeing in this match.
Yeah, and Greensheep's going to be queuing up Druid, what is becoming the winningest class here in HPL early in the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, been so good versus what other people are bringing. We'll get Rdu's perspective up as quickly as we can. A little bit of a spectator issue here. This opening hand, though, not too fantastic. Doesn't have a wild growth, doesn't have an innervate, but does have a strong curve nonetheless.
It has a great strong curve and has a shade of Noxramas. That's a pretty important minion here against the Rogue deck, because what Rogue is going to try to do in these matchups is control your minion base while advancing their own. And you know what? We're seeing that new Rogue deck that's becoming popular with Goblin
Barber. Yeah, I mean, we've seen this kind of really come up, and I think this is a nod to the way that some of these aggressive decks have been playing and allocating their minions. Knife Juggler has been found in almost every single aggressive deck recently, so something like Goblin Barber can really swing that around back in your favor. And then even here, it's not that bad. It's still just a 3-2 threat that Greensheep is at some point going to have to do something about. This also checks Piloted Shredder moving forward.
Yeah, it checks Piloted Shredder and the Shade here. Just a great minion to, as you said, get on the board early, because that's one thing that Rogue actually has a problem with every now and then, is getting on the board early and staying there.
Yeah, so we'll have to see exactly how Rdu wants to play this game. I think with the tools he has, there's a potential that he gets a little bit of aggressive here with his Blood Mage Thanos and this backstab. I mean, maybe we're going to start seeing a push for damage pretty early, but I think he's going to want to keep his options open at the same time.
Yeah, he needs a good minion for himself now. A 2-3 coming off this Pilot Shredder is going to kind of put a wrench in the works, but this Deadly Poison is going to help him pick it up.
Yeah, there's a sort of a wrench to fix that. I mean, Knife is kind of like a wrench. They're both tools. They both do things.
I think the Auto Barber has a wrench somewhere on one of those arms that it has on it. But yeah, he's got a prep and a sprint in his hand to help refill here later in the game, so he doesn't mind having to allocate an extra resource there.
Yeah, I mean, having 2 preps and a sprint is going to give him a very explosive turn 5 here, kind of regardless of what Greensheep's going to play. This Shade I don't think is large enough to unveil just quite yet. He wants to kill this Blood Mage, but at the same time, he wants to get development on the board. And running out a big game Hunter here, not the worst thing in the world, but it's everything that he's going to play is kind of checked on all fronts right now.
Yeah, he could play a big game Hunter, use his hero power, take a little damage to clear this Blood Mage Thanos, or he could play something like Druid of the Claw and give it taunt, but you can get a big tempo play from the other side if he has a card like Sap, and he can push in a ton of damage on you if you don't unveil the Shade. This is, I think, one of the hardest parts of playing decks like Rogue when you're a Druid, is when to unveil your Shade, because you don't want to give it up to a card like Eviscerate, but at the same time, you need to control this board as much as possible.
You can just see Greensheep pained by this Goblin
This is a very hard turn.
Yeah, I mean, it's been putting a lot of pressure on him. He's actually going to run his Shade in here and then try to protect his Shade with this Druid of the Claw. So, something like Phantom Knives would be a great pickup here, but Rdu doesn't have something like that right now. He's going to have to, I mean, this looks to me like it's going to be prep, sprint is his first course of action, and then the Eviscerate to take out the Druid of the Claw in combination with the Blood Mage. That looks like a fantastic turn to me, but that is going to give initiative to Greensheep.
Yeah, he does have prep, sprint, but he still has the coin in his hand and another preparation, so he could have an actual pretty big turn after this.
Blade Flurry's not bad either.
Yeah, Blade Flurry's not bad, but it's going to be a little short of cleaning up this Druid of the Claw. He can only do it for 5 right now.
Yeah, I mean, he does have the Blood Mage sitting on board, so he can use that as well. Because he wants to clear out the Shade, I would venture to say he's going to go with the Blade Flurry here. You cannot let that minion get out of control.
Yeah, I don't think he minds trading his Blood Mage after getting in the damage here. It's just a good, clean turn, and it doesn't yield a ton of initiative back to Greensheep. Yeah, he does get to go first, but you get to clear his entire board, and hopefully he has a minion after that you can really take care of.
Yeah, so you can see it here. I mean, he did also have the option to Blade Flurry potentially on next turn and try to sweep up more stuff, but I mean, we've seen this from Rdu. Loves to attack the board very early on and try to keep that strict control. And with the Azure Drake now and also preparation Eviscerate after this, his next couple turns are looking fantastic.
Yeah, so are Greensheep's as well, though. He gets to play Sylvanas or Pilot Shredder plus Hero Power if he wants this turn. He can even, weave in a Wild Growth there if he wants to, but he already has a Dr. Boom set up for next turn.
Yeah, I think Sylvanas is a totally fine play here. He's seen Backstab at this point. He's, he hasn't seen a sap, so that is something he's worried about. But one of the things that can't happen when you play Sylvanas is Azure Drake and Eviscerate. Your opponent doesn't have the option to do that. The Sylvanas is going to steal the Azure Drake in that spot. So I do like the Sludge Belcher as well, though, just get a threat on board that's difficult for Rogue to deal with. I think he's trying to draw off these saps a little bit, but, Lotheb's going to come down here and check this Sludge Belcher. He's got Dr. Boom to follow this. Again, his turns are looking so fantastic, and now that he's picked the Harrison Jones,
yeah.
There's potential to see some massive, massive swings over in Greensheep's favor, and this is the start of the dangerous turns now for RDU.
Yeah, absolutely. RDU needs to find a way to control this board and do it quickly. He's starting to fall behind by a lot here. Greensheep just applying a ton of pressure here with this Dr. Boom and the Sludge Belcher.
Yeah, it does have some options to deal with it, though. I mean, Azure Drake, I think, is going to be the start of this and kind of move forward from here. Eviscerate, I think, a totally reasonable play, and just kind of, absorb some damage and hope to get things done afterwards. He's going to save his Eviscerate, though. Looks like he just wants to dagger up. So Savage Roar is something that would be very dangerous here. Doesn't have a way to play around that, but Greensheep doesn't have it right now.
Yeah, Greensheep doesn't have it right now, but he still gets to have a pretty good turn here. He's got a Harrison Jones to take care of this dagger if he wants just to take some mana away from RDU. It's a good tempo play. You can never be too careful against the rogue decks when you have an advantage, and yeah, we're going to see him do this
Two
as a
cards,
tempo
I
play.
think, is really the story here. It's too much to pass up. But this is like a 5-cost Ancient Allure almost. That still doesn't get Savage Roar, but now he has plenty of ways to start clearing out this board.
Yeah, he has Wrath now that he's picked up to take care of this Lotheb if he wants cleanly. He can start attacking this Azure Drake in ways that he wants to. He can couple this with some attacks from his boom bots as well here. Got just a ton of options. His hand has just been great this game.
Like the Wrath for 3.
Yeah, Wrath for 3 on Azure Drake is definitely the correct play here, and then probably run a boom bot and hope to get lucky on this one. And oh, that's a little unlucky.
I think it's good enough, though. I mean, the fact that he can take it out, I think, is really the big story here. 1 damage off his boom bot rolls, though. Not happy to see both of them go to 1, but plenty happy to see this much damage coming out. RDU still has to deal with this Dr. Boom and doesn't, this isn't a minion that you're okay with sapping all the time. Your opponent gets more boom bots, and the average explosions are going to equate to 5 damage. That is a massive amount when you really think about it. He has Blade Flurry to kind of clear out some of this, but that's going to take his entire turn.
Yeah, it's going to take his entire turn. You see Greensheep actually develop a Shade here as well. It's going to get swept up in a Blade Fury, but again, you have to apply as much pressure to RDU as you can in this spot, and having a 7/7 is very, very hard to deal with just a Blade Flurry.
Not only that, but he's also getting down into that scary range where Druids can potentially Force Nature and Savage Roar you. I don't think he thinks Greensheep has Savage Roar right now because of what's going on, but this is a very scary position still.
Yeah, he's got a couple options for himself here. He's going to be able to Dagger, Preparation, Tinker Sharpstone Oil. He might want to get this SI agent into play first. I don't know if he needs to get this extra 2 damage from this.
I don't think he's the man to do this if his intent is to Blade Flurry. I mean, this looks like a Blade Flurry Eviscerate turn to me, and then yield initiative back over to Greensheep. So he's able to answer what's happening now, but the big story is that Greensheep is going to be 1 step ahead for almost the entire game unless RDU finds some very massive tempo plays.
Absolutely. RDU is very far behind, having to use a ton of his resources here just to control this board instead of pushing for damage and killing Greensheep. Greensheep had just everything working for him so far this game, and Sludge Belcher picked up. It's going to be great for this turn. He's going to be able to Sludge Belcher and Pilot a Shredder just to use this mana perfectly.
Yeah, that's exactly where he wanted to be, too. 5-drop was so important on this turn to get these threats in this order, and then he has Sylvanas to follow this up. I mean, he's almost completely out of removal at this point, so if Greensheep gets past this point and then just can continue to apply pressure, that's the nightmare scenario.
This is the actual nightmare scenario. It's been everything but the Lotheb from Greensheep here. If he picks up one of that, the game is actually going to end probably on that turn. But you're going to see him make some pretty defensive plays here this turn. He's going to anti-Keelbot, get some life total, and develop a Violet Teacher and hope to God, for RDU, he's going to hope that Greensheep maybe tries to take care of these minions instead of continually pushing damage into him.
Yeah, I think that's actually something that he may be focusing on too. This draw is really going to dictate a lot of that. If he finds himself picking up more removal, like say he gets a Wrath or a Swipe right here, Druid of the Claw also could affect this decision. But it's so easy to kill this Violet Teacher, and it's not the kind of minion you want to leave around and let him get a bunch of value out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. He still can Druid of the Claw for charge here and take care of, get in a ton of damage, but it's hard to pass up an Emperor Thaurissan here in this spot.
Yeah. I would be hard-pressed to pass up the Emperor Thaurissan here. Got to be able to play Sylvanas and Druid of the Claw next turn. That's a major difference into how this game works out. And so far, Greensheep hasn't drawn Force Nature and Savage Roar, and this is something that's very dangerous about this class in particular, is when it doesn't draw draw those, it just continues to apply pressure the whole step of the way. So if you're trying to defend against something like that, it can really kind of come back to haunt you, and he's going to have to leave Emperor Thaurissan around for a turn unless he wants to sap a 5-3 Emperor Thaurissan.
Yeah, it doesn't have the extra mana here to SI Agent, have like a really clean removal turn against Greensheep here, but he does kind of stifle him a little bit. You know, he gets a couple minions off the board, starts to get some damage on this Emperor Thaurissan. This game isn't over yet. Well, I might have spoken too soon.
9-10, it looks like 19 to me, so a lot of pressure potential here from Greensheep, but just a few points short. Is he comfortable with a situation like that, though?
Yeah, it's very dependent on what Greensheep wants to do moving forward from here. If he wants to use the Savage Roar to get in a ton of damage and leave RDU defenseless from that position, he can get in Druid of Claw. He can even, you know, do a couple things where he uses the Savage Roar kind of as a removal spell against this Azure Drake, gets in some more damage, and still develops his board. There's a couple options for Greensheep here this turn. It just matters how hard he wants to push.
Yeah, now given that this Emperor Thaurissan wasn't dealt with, I mean, is charging Druid of the Claw into Azure Drake a realistic option at this point, or is the Savage Roar really kind of putting you in a position where you want to fight for damage?
Since he didn't kill the Emperor Thaurissan.
Oh my gosh, you know what else he could do here? He could actually Sylvanas, Savage Roar, attack, and then BGH his own Sylvanas and steal the Azure Drake away. Not going to go with that play,
he's just
though.
going to make the safe play here and use Savage Roar next turn to clean it up. Since RDU didn't have any removal, he's just going to develop one of his board. Since these Emperors stayed around, you have to believe RDU is out of removal. Yeah. So you can just develop a board here and easily win with Savage Roar.
He's also already seen 2 Blade Flurries, so he's not worried about a major board clear. Really, the only thing he's got to worry about is if RDU can squeeze in enough damage, which without a Blade Flurry, it's much harder to. Right now, he's got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He's got 13 points of damage here, counting the South Sea Deckhand running into the Ooze. So that's not quite enough, but you know, and at the same time though, is he still worried about Savage Roar though? He hasn't seen it yet.
No, he hasn't seen it yet. You have to believe that it's there, but yeah, RDU actually have a pretty aggressive turn here with Tinker Sharpstone Oil, South Sea Deckhand, Sap, and Deadly Poison. I think I need to count it up and see if he's actually.
To me, it looks like he's going to have to make a defensive play here, and I think that starts with Violet Teacher. You know, he hasn't seen Swipe either. The read, in my opinion, is kind of that he just thinks that Greensheep's got more minions in his hand. It's been playing heavy the entire time. You know, he's been pushing for damage when he can, to kind of signaling that he's okay with unfavorable trades. So Sap going to be the start of this, and then I like where this is going. I mean, SI7 Agent going to make a big difference here. He's able to take out Emperor Thaurissan and keep himself at 15. This is a very big turnaround for RDU this turn. The problem is he's at 14, so anytime that Greensheep draws Force of Nature, this game is ending.
Yeah, the game will end if he draws Force of Nature, but RDU fighting his way back into the game. There's that Loatheb we talked about. That is usually back-breaking against the Rogue deck.
Yeah, this actually, I think, will save him in a situation where normally he'd be facing down what looks to me like lethal damage. I mean, he does have the risk of the Tinker Sharpstone Oil falling onto the token that the Violet Teacher's going to make. That token doesn't have charge, so it would remove 3 of that damage, but he's got to do something about the way that this board pressure is rolling out right now, because that turn from RDU was fantastic.
His turn from RDU was fantastic, and you have to develop Loatheb here because you are worried about dying the next turn. And we're going to see a 3-mana Druid of the Claw here.
Pretty darn good. I would venture to say that this is going to go into taunt mode, but
yeah,
given the way the way that Greensheep's played, though, I think there's a very big chance that this just charges at his face and gets in 4 points of damage. I'm going to go with the taunt. I think the extra health is more valuable.
Yeah, he's going to have to play a little defensively here because he is in jeopardy of dying, and he has Savage Roar in his hand, so he just wants to make sure that he can get through those last couple points.
This is actually like a pretty darn good turn here for RDU, despite the fact that Loatheb came out. He can still eviscerate on this Druid of the Claw and use the South Sea Deckhand to take it out. He can also use Deadly Poison here. Is he really going to be... Wow, he's going to start leveraging his life total here. Feels very safe about how this game is going to pan out. This is a very interesting play.
Yeah, I didn't really expect to see RDU attack a minion with his weapon this turn, because again, we're getting to that point where Savage Roar is going to actually just be lethal very, very soon. So I thought he was going to have to be careful with his life total, and maybe he's actually second guessing himself a little bit here.
Yeah, it kind of looks like he is, but what else can you have to go for it at some point, and the sequencing on this is pretty important too. He's just going to use both of these, and then looks like he's he's just going Dome here. I actually really like this from RDU, because so far what he's worried about right now has been Force of Nature and Savage Roar.
That's actually lethal.
Clearly hasn't had it, but 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, that's 14 points of damage. I mean, something he didn't think about was Swipe and Savage Roar. Wow, had some ways to clear this board without taking any damage, and instead takes... He still didn't take any damage, but he left this 5/5 Loatheb here, and that's going to be the difference for this one. Greensheep with a ton of minions throughout the course of the game and able to have enough pressure despite the fact that RDU killed almost everything to end this game.
Yeah, RDU made a great comeback in the game. He seemed to fall pretty far behind early in the game, but we've talked about it in this matchup with these two decks. Against Druid, against Rogue, you cannot leave minions sitting around on the board. They're going to combo you out with big, huge bursts of damage.
Yeah, so dangerous every single time you leave a minion out. You know, Tinker Sharpsword always a big threat, and then of course Savage Roar always a threat when your opponent has multiple minions out. He didn't have it for such a long time that RDU kind of fell into the read that his opponent didn't have that damage available, but sort of as the game went on, that one card stayed in his hand, I think he could have recognized that. And the last turn of the game was really one of the few spots I think that RDU had two completely different roads to take. And, you know, kind of made the best one he could, had to go with his read, and the Greensheep did have to draw either Force Nature or a swipe on that turn, just happened to get it out. You know, you get that deep into your deck, eventually you're going to draw the right cards.
Yeah, we're going to have a quick break. These players are making deck adjustments. They're going to change up their decks, heroes, and anything they want in between these two games. Guys, you can go to the website on pvplive.net and find out anything you want about their career statistics, what they've done, what they might do in the future. You can see how they play their decks, so go out and check that out. You're watching Hearthstone on PvP Live.